I spoke to my news director, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and I told her I needed off, and so she was like, "Okay, just let me know the exact dates." And I said I would let her know exactly. So we need to get on that, at least my flight there, because which I can probably.
All right. All right. Welcome back to the Combo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula is here.
I don't like that. I don't like your all right situation.
What do you mean? Welcome everybody back to the Combo Couch. It's Pasta Jardula here. Happy Friday, and I'm here with my co-host.
I don't do tricks.
If I can throw this pen through the camera and goes all the way through the metaverse and then through into Moscow just so it can go right on your head, I'd be so happy.
Are you saying you want to send weapons of mass destruction into Moscow?
A pluma.
Because
El pluma.
La pluma. Not el
La pluma.
It's feminine, not masculine.
Well, can't you say El if it's really big, like El Presidente?
No.
So if the president was a female, you couldn't say El Presidente?
No, you couldn't.
You have to say La Presidente?
Yes. La Presidenta.
Feminine.
Fam, I'm not here to talk about the rules for romance languages. I'm just telling you how it is. Okay? That's how it is. I don't know.
It's a romance.
If you want to come colonize and change the romance language, that's up to you.
That's a different story. Gotcha. I gotcha, fam. So, fam, we have a nice loaded show today. There are so many things we could have talked about that we didn't talk about, and I'm glad we're going to be able to talk about some stuff today. But, man, there's so many things that are going on. I don't know, maybe a video over the weekend might be coming from me because there's just the whole Beto thing with him acting like a little tough guy. I don't know if it was a plant. I mean, it was just so stupid. There's the new rules on Twitter, fam. Well, new rules about, how they're going to handle the primaries, any misinformation. And of course, like always, they're going to tell you who you should listen to and who you shouldn't listen to. There's that. But I mean, what we also have, and we're going to get into right now, fam, is CBS puts up a video. They go, oh, shoot, skis. This is really maybe, I don't know, or somebody made a phone call, fam, and they said, hey, man, take that down, fam. So why don't you dive right into it? Because this was pretty funny. Because I don't understand how they can do that, because the art of actual journalism where you go to a place and you hey, this is what it's like at the place I'm at. Hi, I'm Vanessa Beeley. This is what's really going on in Syria because it's outside my door. You know what I'm saying? And yet they take that information that's out there, objective, subjective, any way you want to put it, it still should be allowed to stand. But in today's day and age where they're censoring everything, fam, it came down and dropped faster than a toilet seat.
Nice metaphor. So I didn't really want to start yet because I wanted more people to trickle in. Okay. But I can go ahead
I can riff for another 10 minutes if you want me to riff for you.
No, you don't like riffing. You told me.
I'm not a rifter, fam. I'm not a grifter. I'm a rebel. A loner, Dottie.
I just wanted to mention a little bit of what we covered last show where we had Jimmy Dore on because Jimmy responded to Nina Turner's attack, right? And being and then called him a racist and saying he's supporting the right and all of this. I think that we covered that. We talked about that. But the more important point of all of that is this whole just nature of people like that to go to these attacks really, really just hurts people. It hurts Black people. It hurts whatever minority you're trying to protect because nobody really takes you seriously anymore. And this whole just launching of attacks from these people is just such a waste of time and such a distraction. Jimmy Dore was trending that day. He started trending on Twitter because all of these morons were talking about how Nina Turner destroyed him and all of this. And it's this obsession with Jimmy Dore is fucking ridiculous, guys. You have a war going on. You have literally the United States waging war on Russia via Ukraine. You have a potential war with China and things are escalating every single day. You have a ridiculously awful economic crisis happening in the United States right now. You have ridiculously amazing things happening in Latin America right now. Very things we're going to talk about, how that shift is happening. And all these things, all these people can focus on is Donald Trump and Jimmy Dore. I mean, I really just, I don't even know what to say. Or you know, who's the most ego-driven, chest-puffing idiot on YouTube that, you know, goes and debates somebody else. And it's just so stupid. Elevate the level of discourse that you have, because this is just, it is just so dumb. And, you know, and the reason we discussed it with Jimmy was because I think it's important to not let these people get away with these manipulations, because that's what they do. They even try to say, oh, you're not Latina enough, or you're not this enough, or you're this. Like, they try to just use every sort of avenue because they don't have any facts or any discussions or any narrative to really talk about things. And today I posted a video of a mall in Russia, and I had to go to this mall because it had something to do with getting something for work. Because when you're presenting, you have to look a certain way. And you guys know, you guys see, I dress completely different than I would dress, and whatever.
Damn, I can see your shoulders today.
Yeah. Well, and so shut up, fam. I don't need to hear it. And they do this like hairdo and all this stuff. So anyway, I had to get these specific shoes, and so I went to do that. And I got lost because this place is ginormous, and I should have put it in the folder. You can see my tweet. This mall is ginormous. It has like 7 levels or something ridiculous like that, and it's got this fountain in the center, neon lights everywhere. They started playing the theme to The Godfather, fam.
No,
I swear to God, I should have videoed it. I
want you to go to the 3rd level, Fredo. Oh, I'm coming, fam.
I was like, holy shit, like, what is happening here? They have multiple restaurants, and the restaurants aren't like the freaking food court or anything you go to. It's like, it's insane. I was just like flabbergasted, and they have every store you can think of. And stores you've never seen in your life, because they're like from other countries and whatever. So it's interesting, right? It's a very capitalist thing, a mall, right? It's not necessarily like I'm like, oh, but it was like, I've never seen a mall like that in the United States. Not the Mall of the Americas, not any nice high-end mall. I just haven't seen it. And so I posted this video saying, oh my God, these people are like, they're saying, the West is saying that Russia's falling apart, and like everything is awful, and the sanctions, and this will show Putin. And I'm just showing this mall, like, and people are at the mall, and people are everywhere. They're walking the streets, and people are like, you know, you should post more of this stuff, because people still think that Russia is just like this, you know, third world country where people are like making long lines for bread. I mean, that's this image that people have. When you go home and you go to other places, from other colleagues, I've heard family members are like, were you okay? Were you able to say things? Like, they say the dumbest things. And so people have this idea that life is a certain way. And I didn't know it was that bad. I mean, I knew people had this idea that it was bad, but I didn't know like it was that far gone where people thought I made up that video, that it was fake, that it was just, I'm just like, no, this is really there. Like, so it's crazy that's the level of brainwash people have. And so then by comparison, when we're talking about these macro geopolitical events happening, and then you have idiots that are focused on all of TYT, all of these morons on the Vanguard, everybody just going after Jimmy Dore. It's like, it's just like, what are you doing?
No.
What are you doing? Why aren't you talking about this other stuff? You know, and the more you hate on him, the more, if you hate him so much, stop talking about him, because you just made him trend on Twitter again, by the way. And so you're so dumb. It's just so dumb.
Fam,
anyway,
I just want to say
that was my rant.
It's just so funny to the whole story. And Steve is in the chat right now, hanging out. And Rokfin, what's up? is that his tweet that we played on the show with Jimmy the other day, and Jimmy retweeted it. He had to turn it off after a while. He's like, dude, the level of shit livery that you guys, like, he just like, oh my God. And it's like, yeah, we used to hang with those people. They were our friends. But, I mean, hey, whatever distracts them, fam, whatever keeps their mind off of what's really going on. But by the way, the Vanguard went after Jimmy. I didn't see that, of course.
All these people.
I'm surprised.
It's just insane.
They didn't go after Tulsi. I mean, that's something else we're not talking about today.
A lot of people. Yeah, she's hosting the Tucker
Carlson show today. She's filling in for Tucker on Fox. I saw Charlatan put up, I said, I told you guys. I told you. Wow.
Who cares? Who cares? She's not in Congress anymore. She's literally like, she's the perfect type of person to host a show like that. She literally has very similar views that resonate with a lot of people. Like, she's somebody that I think could really get a lot of people, at least when it comes to Assange and when it comes to less interventionism, even though I still don't think she's she's not an anti-imperialist. But she says things that other people don't say. And I think, like we were talking about before, like, that's now the narrative, right? With Kim, like, it's like where people don't want the mainstream narrative anymore. And so I think, like, if I were Fox, I wouldn't, that doesn't surprise me that she's on there. And we talked about her shift to the right a little bit before. But yeah, so anyway, guys, let's just start talking about this, because Pasta did say, right, this is a big deal. I think this is a big deal. Once again, this is what we've been talking about all week, this trend to the and share, like, and subscribe, all that stuff, by the way. Because I've been getting so shadow banned on Twitter. It's insane. Like, it's insane. So is Garland Nixon. We were talking about that. But so CBS actually did journalism for once, right? And they had this documentary that pretty much said a lot of truths about the Ukrainian lies, and basically debunked this narrative, and basically asserted that all of this money that was going to Ukraine and all these weapons and stuff wasn't really ending up in the place that it should be. And it wasn't getting to the right places. And RT has done a segment. I think it was Rachel that did a segment on it most recently. And RT has talked about it. We've talked about it. Independent media sort of talked about this. These weapons end up in the black market. They don't get to where they should be. So CBS finally put this out there. And then, of course, just like they complain about Roger Waters, just like they complained about Amnesty International, they cried and cried and cried. Ukraine did, Zelensky did, the Slava Ukraini idiots on Twitter. And CBS retracted it, pretty much put a giant editing note that we're going to go over, and remove the story and remove the documentary. And they said they're going to re-release the documentary with the context included. So this is the tweet they had. They said, we removed a tweet promoting our recent doc, and I'll show the original tweet in a second, Arming Ukraine, which quoted the founder of the nonprofit Blue Yellow, Jonas Omen's assessment in late April that only around 30% of aid was reaching the front lines in Ukraine. And that was from somebody that was directly dealing with the whole thing, right? That was being interviewed. That's journalism. And this is the original tweet. Since that time, sorry, this isn't the original tweet. This is what they said under this tweet as to why they deleted it, the original tweet. And they said, since that time, Omen says delivery has improved. So because now they're saying delivery improved, they deleted the original tweet. Additionally, the U.S. military has confirmed that Defense Attaché Brigadier General Garrick M. Harmon arrived in Kiev in August for arms control and monitoring. So that the article was why military aid in Ukraine may not always get to the front line. So that was the title of the article, and they had a tweet up. So then Anti-War did an article basically surmising the whole thing, and basically they did this. They removed the documentary. They retracted the actual documentary, not just edited the article, but retracted the documentary on Sunday after pressure from the Ukrainian government. The original documentary CBS put out examined the flow of military aid to Ukraine and quoted someone familiar with the process that only 30% of the arms were making it to the front line. You guys can watch the documentary on BitChute. It's if you go to this article, it's linked there. Now, the full quote I have on the next slide, but they mentioned the 30%, and they also said that in antiwar.com, after the documentary sparked outrage from the Ukrainian government, it was removed from the internet by CBS. In an editor's note, CBS said it changed the article that was published with the documentary and that the documentary itself was being updated. So they're saying this whole thing is being updated. The original quote on slide 10 is all of this stuff goes across the border and then something happens. Kind of like 30% of it reaches its final destination. Jonas Oman said, this is directly from the article. The founder of Lithuania-based organization supplying the Ukrainian military told the American News Network. So there it is. That's the quote directly they got from this founder of this organization that actually supplied the Ukrainian military. So this is a pro-Ukrainian dude. Why would this person lie, right? The editor's note also insisted that Oman had said the delivery of weapons in Ukraine has significantly improved, just like we mentioned. And they talked about the same, the Garrett Harmon guy and all of that. So that is the editor's note. If you guys want to read the editor's note directly from the CBS News, you guys can see it. The article has been updated to reflect changes since the CBS reports documentary Army of Ukraine was filmed. The documentary is also being updated and blah, blah, blah. So you guys can see what they did. And lastly, for this part, in the documentary, Oman described the corruption and bureaucracy that he has to work around to deliver aid to Ukraine. There are like power lords, oligarchs, political players, he said. The system itself is like, we are the armed forces of Ukraine. If security forces want it, well, the Americans gave it to us. It's kind of like power games all day long. And so eventually people need the stuff, they go to us. Other reporting has shown that there's virtually no oversight for the billions of dollars in weapons that the U.S. and its allies are pouring into Ukraine. The CNN reported in April that the U.S. has almost zero ability to track the weapons it is sending once they enter Ukraine. One source briefed the U.S. intelligence described it as dropping the arms into a big black hole. This is like from the documentary, guys. This is how they describe the process of what happens once these arms enter Ukraine. So before I continue, Pasta, just wanted to hear some from you.
Yeah, I mean, I often think and wonder, like, do those who are running this planet, those people we talk about, do they have some pact at Bohemian Grove or wherever they go that they have to tell us the truth about things? Is it part of their belief system where they have to give you some forms of the truth, right? Because this didn't seem like a controlled release of information for any other reason. This felt like they were stepping on a banana peel and slipped. But at the end of the whole movie, they say, oh, the same guy who was out there. And it's so, crazy that, after he says how like maybe 30% get there. I think that was a good, assessment for the United States.
Yeah.
Fam, when they said 30%, I think we were looking at each other. It was like, it's probably more like 15% and stuff. But at the end, he says, well, that's why we have to win the war. We have to win the war because we can't allow this to stick, So I was thinking that they were showing this information to almost tell us the truth, but they went too far. Like I said, they stepped on a banana peel the way they exposed so much of themselves and actually what's happening with those weapons. I don't know anybody who saw that or just snippets of that could stand behind or consent for sending of weapons to Ukraine whatsoever. I mean, just think about the black market, I mean, it's ironic at this point, fam, to see people with Ukrainian flags in their bio calling for gun control in the United States, but yet they're okay with these weapons that are going everywhere, used to kill people, even babies. It is a shame. And I think that, people need to wake up to this because, they want to put it back in, they said, with different context, fam. Well, what's that context? They want to tell more of their truth or their bullshit, their propaganda, and squeeze some of this information because it really did come back and backfire on their ass.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're I don't think there's such like I don't there's no their truth. I mean, they want to like propagandize the
Yeah,
whole thing
their
because
truth is
they
propaganda, right? So I can't
yeah.
say it.
So because well, no, it's just like, it's just like that there's no there's fact when it comes to this sort of matter because there's things that are happening and there's just denial coming from the people. You said, why do people who want to cancel guns in the United States have, these Ukrainian flags? Well, because these people aren't Ukraine, like they're not Ukrainians, they're not Russians, they're not at the war, so they can easily stand by their virtue signaling
Yeah.
and pretend that they're all for that, but they don't have to deal with the consequences. Whereas with the gun issue, they're like, oh, this is affecting us and blah blah blah, and we're here. But and they also deny that the Nazi issue is a big issue. That's the main thing I found, that people that are pro Ukraine, they say it's all conspiracy, that it's not real. So they're denying that the very existence of that very big problem that's long existed before this February conflict started. So Caitlin Johnstone also did an article talking about this, right? And she kind of broke down direct quotes from the documentary itself, which, by the way, again, is a BitChute. And if you go to her article, she also links it. And this is what was said, right? The U.S. has sent tens of thousands of anti-aircraft and anti-armor systems, artillery rounds, hundreds of artillery systems, switchblade armored drones, and tens of millions of rounds of small armed ammunition. CBS's Adam Yamaguchi says at 14:15, so 2:15 of the documentary, but in a conflict where front lines are scattered and conditions change without warning, not all of those supplies reach their destination. Some also reported weapons are being hoarded, or worse, fear that they are disappearing into the black market, an industry that has thrived under corruption in post-Soviet Ukraine. This is basically cementing what RT covered weeks ago, what we've covered also, that these weapons end up in the black market. This is coming directly from these people. And by the way, I just did a little segment too on RT on the fact that the United States is supplying Ukraine with long-range missiles that have the ability to reach targets that are further away and do more damage, and they're not putting that in any inventory when they're giving away this money. It's not being mentioned at all. So they're supplying weapons that they're not disclosing to the public, that they're not disclosing to anybody. And so the question is, what else are they not disclosing, right? If they're able to send these weapons that are completely different and completely more lethal and completely just have more of a technology that can be used to destroy, and they're not putting them down, what else are they hiding? Another thing that was said in the documentary was, I can tell you unarguably that on the frontline units, these things are not getting there. The Mozart's group Andy Milburn tells Yamaguchi at 1740. Same slide, 14. Drones, switchblades, IFAKs, they're not all right. Body armor, helmets, you name it. So these people are literally saying in this documentary that these weapons, these military type of guards and just weaponry in general are not getting to where they should be, right?
Yeah.
And she continues on slide 15. Is it safe to characterize this as a little bit of a black hole? Yamaguchi asked him. This is where that comment was made. Perhaps in reference to an April report from CNN, whose source said the equipment that's being sent drops into a big black hole, and you have almost no sense of it all after a short period of time. I suppose if you don't have visibility of where the stuff is going, and if you're asking that question, then it would appear that it's a black hole. Yeah, Milburn replied. We don't know, Amnesty International's Donatello Rivera tells Yamaguchi at 1845, when asked if it's known where the weapons being sent to Ukraine are going. There is really no information as to where they're going at all. What is more worrying is that at least some of the countries that are sending weapons do not seem to think that it is their responsibility to put in place a very robust oversight mechanism to ensure that they know how they're being used today, but also how they might and will be used tomorrow. So there's no control where after these weapons are sent, it goes into a black hole. They could do whatever it is they want with them. They could sell them on the black market. They could give them to random people. None of these countries are exerting any sort of documentation, inventory of where these weapons are going. The United States is sending secret weapons on top of that. This is where the billions are going, and American people are paying the brunt of it, because I don't care what you tell me about MMT, the American people's tax dollars in one way or another are being at the very least used as an excuse to say, oh, the United States stands with Ukraine, the United States is supporting Ukraine, and blah, blah, blah. So that's what I wanted to say about that.
Because their fight, fam, is our fight. Okay, their fight for freedom is everybody's fight for freedom. I stand with Ukraine, or I stand with the next thing, depending what it is. So right now it's Ukraine. You know, and I want to say this much. When he even mentioned what a black hole was, fam, you read it, but even his tone, he was very liberal when he says it. Well, if you define a black hole as A, B, C, or D, then right, yeah, I guess you can say it's a black hole. You know what I'm saying? Like they were very ginger in this documentary. You know what I'm saying? They were very careful what they said, when they said it, how they said it. But there's no way you can put the lipstick better on a pig. It's still lipstick on a pig. This situation sucks. The people should know by now. I mean, we didn't need this movie. Some people needed to see this movie because, like we said the other day, remember when we were talking about a certain subject and you're like, are you surprised? I'm like, no, fam, but at least we got to show the receipts. Well, this movie was partially some of the receipts. You got to see what happens to the weapons. But guess what, fam? This isn't just since the military action happened and the $8 billion we poured on in the last several months since April. This has been going on in Ukraine for a long time. And when in 2014, when the puppet government took over, we empowered these criminal black market aspects, not just with guns, but with drugs and with humans and with children's organs. All this stuff goes through there. Vanessa Beeley does a lot of great work on this. So it is no surprise. But at the end of the day, if this doesn't help you get your head out of your ass, then nothing will. Then I'm not trying to talk to you about anything right now, because you cannot look objectively at other things. You are looking only for your confirmation bias, and you're ignoring the truth right in front of your face.
Yeah, and remember, we just had Isha on, who talked about what these fascist battalions are doing, not just the Azov, but there's a Tornado and all these other ones that just got released by Zelensky, and with the crimes they did, those weapons ending up in those hands should be a scary thought for some of these people. I mean, it's one thing to have a bunch of morons who want to play Call of Duty in real life, weapons, and then they go and they die because they put them in the front lines, and that's what they were doing. These mercenaries. That's why a lot of them left. And it's another thing to have literal fascists with these guns, you know, who are willing to do what it takes and kill a bunch of people, civilians included. It's something that should weigh on the conscience of a lot of people that are just, you know, shouting Slava Ukraini like every 5 seconds. And by the way, this is something I really want to point out that really pisses me off when it comes to this situation, when it comes to every situation, where when you're right on something, when your conviction, when you know your conviction is right, when you know that you have the facts on your side, right? You have the facts on your side. You know things, you know you're right. You know you're not bending to the will of the establishment. Why the hell do you go back and backtrack just to appease the establishment and these morons that are lying and are trying to tell a certain narrative? And I see that happen with everything. I see it happening with some people on the left who try to appease progressives and be like, well, we can't say that because the progressives get mad. Or when it came to Amnesty International, when they literally started saying, oh, well, but they started kind of backtracking after they did this whole expose about how you know, a lot of the things that Ukraine was doing were violations of international law, that they were wrong, that they were lacking in humanity. And of course, they started getting all this hate. And what did they do? A great portion of them backtracked. The person resigned. It's like, oh, they were late to the game on this whole issue. And they barely said something. And now, because they got so much crap, they started backtracking. It's the same thing here. This guy, the Ukrainian government official, Dmytro Kuleba, didn't care that CBS removed the tweet. You will never appease these people. These people will never ever say, "Oh, thank you so much." No, because these people, it's never going to be enough for them. You're never. It's the same thing with Bernie Sanders and the Democratic Party. You're never going to be good enough for them. They're never going to accept you. So why the hell do you start licking boots again? He said, "Welcome first step, but it is not enough. You misled a huge audience by sharing unsubstantiated claims and damaging trust and supplies of vital military aid to a nation resisting aggression and genocide." Genocide, really? Really? Palestinians would like a word. There should be an internal investigation into who enabled this and what. So now the government of Ukraine is demanding that the U.S. media and the U.S. government, essentially, because we know they're merged, do some sort of internal investigation over somebody doing actual journalism by accident, on accident, by mistake. Like, this is, so Ukraine, just like Israel, pretty much dictates what our government does, where our money goes. Is that what's going on, guys? Like, is that really, are you okay with that, patriots? Are you okay with that, libertarians? Because I'm not okay with it. Like, why do they have so much say into how much money is going into their countries? Meanwhile, look at everybody else. First of all, we're not helping. We only help people that it's convenient for us to help via resources, via expansion. And so, but you're not getting any of this. You're not being helped in any way. You're actually being screwed further. And so is the EU. So at the end of the day, it will never serve you to go and bend over backwards because some moron, whether they're a pro-Ukrainian, a liberal,
a shit lib,
a latte
cappuccino communist, these latte liberals.
They're not. I mean, they're never going to accept you. They're never. It's not worth appeasing these people. Same, and that goes with the Nina Turners of the world and all of that. It's never going to work. And this is just another example of that. And it's really stupid to see CBS really just, but it's also very enlightening for the people who didn't believe that the media, who still think the media is, free in the United States, who still think that Twitter is a private company. We're not going to talk about that today, but the fact that they expanded on their already draconian rules, right? You guys saw the Louise Mensch thing, right? Ever since the Louise Mensch and I went after her, Twitter has been like coming after me, like constantly. And all these NATO bots, these pro-NATO bots on Twitter, all of that, like this is part of it, guys. The government has merged with these corporations, with the military-industrial complex, with the national security state apparatus. That's the government. The government isn't Joe Biden. The government isn't the squad even. They're just tools. That's it. And that's where we're at. And this is fascism. It's not communism. That is fascism. You don't have a single communist in the United States government. Spam. And by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene is right about the FBI. And me saying that doesn't mean I love Marjorie Taylor Greene. Because if you know anything about me, you would know Marjorie Taylor Greene and I are diametrically opposed. But I can say, hey, she said the right thing about that. Do I trust her? No, I don't trust any of these people because just like Ted Cruz, they play team sports, guys. They play team sports. I can say, stop saying that. I don't buy it.
Well, so some people out here are like, they're playing this particular FBI thing two different ways. We have those people who like, Marjorie Taylor Greene is dangerous. You shouldn't even listen to her because she says this and that. Steve got blocked by somebody for kind of pushing back against that narrative. Like, okay, we understand what you're saying, pal, but that's the whole team sports mentality married to your ideology. But there's a bunch of other people, independent media people, who are also going, well, this is a good thing. Like, if they really want to get rid of the FBI, then we should talk about it. And yeah, that would be something that's great. Like Steve said this morning, I was like, well, MGT, right? Marjorie, MTG, sorry. If you're serious, draft up some policy, right? Okay, draft up a bill. And Steve was like, no, go to the Hoover building, right, where they're at, the J. Edgar Hoover building, and throw a protest in front of the FBI while you go over the history of FBI. But Dan Bongino showed you everything. We showed it on the show. And this is the mentality of the conservatives and the patriots out there. They're not serious about squashing any type of police force in this country. They still praise it. They still love it. For them, it's bad management. Let's just get the right management in there. Dan Bongino called for the next president to get in there, hoping that it's Trump, that they should fire all these people within the FBI, but then replace them with who? A system that is rotten to the core. Its own purpose, a system is rotten to the core. The reason why they exist is rotten to the core. You cannot reform that system. You get rid of it. The FBI exists to terror and punish its own citizens to make sure that they don't gain power and that they constantly push upon you mass murder and rape and everything. So you're scared enough to give them the power so they have a 100% completely controlled security state. That's what this is about. So I don't believe a lot of these conservatives when they say, oh, this is bad. Yeah, we should have those conversations. But I think they're full of shit, fam. I haven't seen a serious conversation
they're
about
full of shit. No. They're full of shit. But one can say, okay, thank you for realizing this.
Absolutely.
Now, what are you going to do about it? And saying that doesn't make one a racist.
No.
And it doesn't make me supportive of her ideology. It doesn't make me anything. It just simply acknowledging that somebody you don't like or somebody that disagrees with you on practically everything said something correct. Guess what? That happens all the time. You know who was like that? You know who was able to see past ideology and able to like different people, what they said, even if they disagreed on other things? Julian Assange pissed a lot of people off because he liked people like people's tweets that were problematic, people like Cassandra Fairbanks, people that like I don't like, people that I don't give too much value to. But guess what? When somebody was right and said something that he thought was right or was truthful, you say, okay, well, thank you for saying that, and that's that. That doesn't mean that you endorse their history, the history of every single one of their actions. What kind of moronic thought process is that? Where a lot of these leftists are so ideologically driven only that you need to be driven by the truth before anything else. The fact that I'm driven by the truth, and it's the truth towards with an empathetic lens, is what makes my ideology, rather than me saying, oh, this ideology is cool, so I want to be a part of it. No, it's because I believe that this is the correct ideology. And I think that's the difference between certain different groups of people on the left, where their ideology is first and it's the only right thing. And if you don't agree with it, then you're cast out and you must be a fascist. I don't think Marjorie Taylor Greene is a fascist. I just think she's completely ignorant in a lot of ways, completely misinformed, completely propagandized. I think these people like her and Ted Cruz can't have those neocon tendencies because they're so ideologically driven. They're as ideologically driven as people on the left who despise them so much. They have that in common because their ideology comes before the truth. And that's the problem, because your ideology shouldn't come before the truth. If you have new information that says, hey, maybe this thing that I thought about my ideology isn't valid anymore, you shift your ideology. But that's because you go about it with the truth. And that's the problem. Both on the left and right, they're ideologically first that. And it's not right. It's just because it changes, right? Things change.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the truth is the truth, too, no matter who says it, no matter whose mouth it comes out of. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene was one of the few people in lawmakers to talk about Julian Assange, right? Saying we should free Julian Assange, we should pardon him. So, I mean, this is just crazy. Because you're never going to agree with everybody on everything. You know what I'm saying? You're always going to have differences. But, I think that is the whole branding of a fascism. But, fam, this happens on both sides. I remember when we went to Colombia, a friend of ours, we were debating whether he was telling me that, Ron Paul was a fascist because he believed completely against the socialist ideology. Rand Paul, his son's book, is the argument against socialism. That doesn't make them fascist, right? But that was sort of the mentality. Anybody who strongly believes against socialism is a fascist. Like, no. That is
There's a lot of libertarians.
Yes, and they're not.
There's a lot of libertarians. They're not fascists. I could disagree with them. I can even dislike a lot of them and their stances. But fascism is a very specific thing. It's what we're seeing in these Azov battalions, in the tornado battalions, what we've seen in parts of Latin America. It's what we've seen in the World War II. That's a very specific ideology. And right now we're having, because it's the 21st century, right? The merger of the corporations, as Pasta pointed out, with Mussolini and with the state is really taking us into this fascist territory. So anyway, so that's that section. We're gonna go to section 3, Pasta, because we had to.
You want to do some super race first?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Sending a special shout out, looking at the Rokfin chat, and some special love to a new study shows. Thank you so much for your kind words, brother or sister, whoever you are. No hard feelings at anything. You know what I'm saying? Listen, I come to my shows too as well. When you have two incredibly smart co-hosts like Steve and Fiorella, the opportunity for me to learn every day is just priceless, and I love doing that. And that's why I come to the show, and I do it because I do learn a lot every single show. The reason why I'm sitting over here doing this is because I've always believed it's not just what you have to say, it's how you say it. And so since I'm good looking and funny, I decided to take the brains of Fee and Steve and make it work. And that's what's happening. So thank you so much for those kind words. And we're going to keep rocking. AREM Convo Couch rocks. So do you, AREM. That is a very generous tip. Like always, we appreciate it. You guys help keep the lights on, keep the vodka for Fiorella's Putin flowing, and we love you for that. I'm just kidding. Game.film, thank you for the super great contribution. Happy weekend, fam. Fuck censorship and love you all. Yes, fam.
Yeah. That just reminded me of the fact that Russians really love karaoke.
Dude, have you drank any vodka with Russians out there yet? Have you gone out and done Nostrovia? Have you come up with a Russian nickname yet? You know?
No, I like I have a Russian name. It's like something specific, but I keep forgetting what it is. I'll let you guys know last time. Yeah, well, the way my name is spelled in Russian is different, and the way it's said is different because they don't really have a letter F like that here.
Ooh.
So it's different. It's like a T. It's different. It's complicated.
Did you learn how to say pasta yet?
No, but I've eaten pasta here a lot. I went to a place called Basta Pasta. I was supposed to send you a screenshot, but I forgot.
Believe it or not, the way they say pasta is macaroni.
No, it's not. In Russian? Really? How do you know this?
Makarony.
Really?
Fam, I'm looking at it. I got to tell you how to say words in your native tongue. Please.
Fam, Russian is not my native tongue.
I seen you I seen a picture of you on a coffee bag. You have a Russian hat over there.
Propaganda.
Svetlana Isabel.
Yeah, I like Svetlana, guys. What do you think?
I like it.
Yeah, so
let's jump into
I'm not doing RT.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's jump.
You want to tell us something? Section. I'm sorry. I'll stop. You were saying?
No. I want to jump into the next section, but I was saying since I'm not doing RT, I have to have a video out this weekend. So, but when I do RT, it's harder because I work nights and it's like insane.
You've been working hard. You've been working a lot. You know what I'm saying? We all have. I mean, we've been doing this nonstop, and it's been a lot of fun. So let's get into the next section because I wanted to touch on something, and we were able to kind of build off this because a lot of stuff is going on. As you know, Fiorella, Johnny Sue, the Combo Couch with our good friends Terry Matson, Code Pink, Wyatt Reed, Dennis the Russian. We love him. Camilla, Kasachwan News. There's some people we see out and about when we get out to these places, and they've been doing this stuff for a while. I mean, we jumped in the game not too long ago. I think we brought this whole aspect of elections, and fam, I can gladly and proudly say now, the way to national sovereignty is through free, fair, and transparent elections. We've seen it, we've witnessed it, we know it works. We can tell people The British are coming. The British are coming. Well, the elections work. The elections work. So this whole region of the global South in our hemisphere, because it's really, just Latin America, we've talked about the pink wave. We've talked about these leftist governments, which I think, really, to tell you the truth, these governments are very much populist. These particular leaders, because they want to, more than anything, they want to make sure that their country has national sovereignty. They want the right to choose how their country moves forward, and they don't want the West telling them what to do. That's the one thing they want. A lot of times they'll have a government that's friendly to the West. We saw it in Honduras. Get him out. That's the first thing. Get him out. We take control. Then we can start building a future forward and go through the whole obstacles that are going to be in place as it all happens. But the first things first is they have to take national sovereignty. A lot of them are taking national sovereignty. And with that, fam, a lot of enemies are now awakening and brewing in the United States. We showed Marco Rubio last week with the Senate Hearing Committee. What's his name? Bob Menendez, your favorite. You love him. Tim Kaine even joined into it. And last week I said that I hate Marco Rubio more than Ted Cruz. I take it back, fam. I hate them equally. And we'll get into that today. But as soon as Petro got into power, he started making some moves that were very eye-opening, that were considered very leftish. But I think they were also considered very much telling the West to go scratch. So Colombia's new left-wing government reestablishes ties with Western Sahara, fam. We talked about it on the show. We talk about the regime change wars. We talk about what happened. You can throw it on up. Thank you so much, Oz. We talk about what happened in Venezuela, the way Donald Trump failed cooing him several times, pushing Juan Guaido, who can't even eat in a restaurant now, in Caracas because they'll throw him out and rip his shirt off. We talked about his ways towards Nicaragua. He had Bolton, he had Abrams, he had all these war hawks that have been doing this shit in the global South for a long time, fam. But these people have been pushing forward. One of the regime changes we don't talk about because it's not mentioned much is Western Sahara, in which there was a pact and a treaty signed, and Donald Trump signed it along, where Israel and Morocco started having relations and stuff, and they had a history of butting heads. And all Israel had to do was recognize, along with the United States, Morocco's claim to Western Sahara. What's in Western Sahara? We talked about it. Phosphate, a lot of it. Morocco has a ton of it, but some is left in Western Sahara. Now, with that being going into play, fam, that threw Algeria into a mix where Algeria said go scratch, because then Spain followed suit along with Israel and the United States and recognized Morocco's claim to Western Sahara. And so Algeria spat in the face of Spain saying, screw you, we're going to sell your natural gas to Italy. And that stuff's been going on. It's been causing craziness in the whole region. Well, now Petro gets back into play. People have to realize that I believe that it was somewhat of a I believe it was like Spanish colonies at one point that did control this area or were in this area. But Colombia used to recognize Western Sahara. They left when Duque was president. Now, with Petro back in, immediately reestablishes relations with Western Sahara. This is big. This is a bold move because it's going to piss the United States off and Morocco, who want the rights to claim that natural resource that is theirs. So this is a big
right. So yeah, I just want to add, you can see the alliances here, and if you understand that, it'll make more sense. Morocco and Spain are allies. The Latin American countries in general still have a very just like a relationship of rivalry with Spain, because there's a lot of things, obviously, historically, right? Spain was like the Britain to the United States, right? It was like the colonizers, right? And because of the decades of colonizing, it really put Latin America in a backward trend. And then, of course, came in the United States and established this sort of neo-colonial relationship where Latin America never really accomplished what Simon Bolivar had in mind, which was a one united Latin America. And so there is this push happening from the things Pasta has mentioned, these governments trying to establish national sovereignty away from the United States, because, again, they felt like they were once again under the power of colonizers to a certain degree, especially Colombia, the only NATO partner of the United States in Latin America. And so they are pushing to bring back these ideas of Bolivar, where there could be more of a relationship with their neighboring countries. So we're going to talk about that in a second. But in Africa, that's happening as well. The Pan-Africanism happening between these countries that have been colonized by the West. And so there is all of that happening. And I think that's important to point out. And so when this with Western Sahara is happening, you can see the alliances happen more so with between Latin American countries and Western Sahara. Latin American countries are not 100 on board anymore with this unipolar U.S. Western world, and Morocco, Spain, Israel, the United States. It's very obvious where Colombia is going to be in a line, and I think Petro is making moves very quickly. I think much quicker than people thought he would. And also, he's kind of debunking this narrative right away that he's just going to play ball with the United States all the time, because the things he's doing right now are actually kind of putting on a giant target on Colombia. And honestly, and even he's even moving faster than I would think he should in certain aspects, because this is like the things he's doing are very symbolic. I think a lot of Latin Americans understand it. Maybe people outside of the region may not. But the things he's doing and the things he's saying, the things we're going to talk about are very big. And they're very anti-imperialist in many ways, but still kind of walking that line where he's not directly going after the United States. Yeah. But he's putting like the crumbs for that.
Yeah. So. I think one of the best moves that he's made, which is really kind of bold and kind of like lets him go underneath the radar, is the fact that he's not going to try to challenge the sale and trafficking of cocaine out of his country, that he's just going to decriminalize a lot of that within his own country. So therefore, it will relieve the tension from the Colombians that are involved with this, because it's an illegal substance when they're fighting for it. So I think that is a bold move, what he's doing that. I think he's going to have a problem when it comes to ESGs. He's going to have to be sure he's going to be able to explain his way out of this, because there is some serious, disgusting mining going on in the Amazon where they're destroying it. We used to play the pink dolphins all the time. That's going to be a challenge. But all these other moves, fam, so far, I think are good moves. They're moves under the radar. There were moves that I think a lot of people expected, but maybe a little bit unexpected, though, in the speed in which he's doing it. Let's jump into this, because this talks about the Polisario front in which he's doing. This is something that it went under the radar with a lot of Americans not realizing what happened with the relations with Morocco and Israel. And fam, let's not forget that there was always tension between Morocco and Spain. Eventually, it broke through when it seemed like the Morocco government had a lot of dirt on Spain used by certain spyware that came from Israel, and it happened after Israel and Morocco made love. Colombia's new left-wing government had reestablished relations with the self-declared Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic in Western Sahara, which is under attack by Morocco, an ally of Washington. It's been signed. It's on paper. Donald Trump did it. Media reports said the new administration of Colombian President Gustavo Petro sought to maintain ties with the Polisario Front, fam, which rules the Western Sahara region and is composed largely of indigenous nomadic inhabitants of Western Sahara, or Sahrawis. Petro, a former fighter of now demobilized M19 rebel group, was recently sworn in as Colombia's first leftist president. The 60-year-old took to his oath of office Sunday, vowing to reunite the polarized nation. Colombia is part of the elite Latin American club that has gone to the left and away from the Western dominance, particularly in the U.S. By the U.S., Colombia had been Washington's top American ally for decades. I think we've mentioned before, fam, that the majority of weapons sold in the global South in Latin America goes to Colombia. NATO status over there. You have anything else before I continue?
No, go ahead.
On December 10th, 2020, Morocco and Israel agreed to normalize relations in a deal brokered with the help of the administration of former U.S. President Donald J. Trump. Morocco became the fourth Arab state to strike a normalization deal with the regime. The others were the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Sudan. Trump sealed the agreement in a phone call with Morocco's King Mohammed 11. Excuse me. That's 11, right? VI is X.
No, it's 6.
That's 6. As part of the agreement, the U.S. president agreed to recognize Morocco's sovereignty over the Western Sahara region, which has been at the center of a dispute with neighboring Algeria. Fam, he just signed off on a phone call. Yeah, I recognize your claim to that territory. As long as you don't let China in, we have a deal. This is my buddy Netanyahu here. He'll give you some spyware. He'll recognize it too. What do you say? And that's what happened. The Algerian foreign minister later rejected Trump's stance, saying the U.S.'s decision has no legal effect because it contradicts UN resolutions, especially the UN Security Council resolution on Western Sahara. The Algeria-backed and pro-independence Polisario Front has rejected in the strongest terms Trump's stance on the disputed region, stating that Trump had attempted to give Morocco that which does not belong to it. And that's the U.S. recognizing Morocco's claim over Western Sahara is illegal, fam. And nobody's been talking about it in the United States. However, fam, I have a little clip over here because a lot of that phosphate goes directly, the stolen phosphate goes to New Zealand. And we have some activists in New Zealand. This is from July 11th. This is probably the newest one, but you can go back and see videos like this for 3 years now, fam, or 2.5 years since they made this announcement. And they are rejecting this stolen phosphate from the land, from the people of Western Sahara.
It's awesome.
Here we are.
Here today, just outside the Sea Breeze, which is carrying hundreds and hundreds of tons of blood phosphate stolen directly from Western Sahara, imported here, bought by Ravensdown Fertilizer and Balance Agri-Nutrients. They're the last 2 companies in the world still buying this stolen phosphate. The ship has made a direct route here to Aotearoa because it's illegal for it to dock in any nation in Africa and South America, as they recognise that this is stolen goods on here.
Just being so open and bold that you've stolen something from somewhere else. And if we think about all the places it's going to go, and it's going to end up in the waterways, and it's just the stolen thing that's just going to permeate everything.
It's also damaging New Zealand by enabling artificial fertilisers to be used that get into our waterways, contaminate our rivers.
So we're here today, this morning, to acknowledge the pain of the Sahrawi people who have been under brutal military occupation for 45 years, and the message to Ravensdown that they are war criminals in this situation.
Free Western Sahara! No blood phosphate! Free Western Sahara! No blood phosphate!
Phosphate. Free
here today.
Free Western Sahara. No blood phosphate. Come on, fam, in your best New Zealand voice. Free Western Sahara. No blood phosphate. And fam, they also talked about this, and this is something I told you I want to have a real serious conversation with Kim Iverson about this, about these ESGs. A lot of these things, right? There's an argument that says with some of these fertilizers, they can reproduce and put out mass amounts of food quickly and industrialize their country, right? We talked about this with Gloria when she had talked about what's going on in India. That's what, like Modi had done. They opened up the door to Monsanto. When it came to Sri Lanka, they were on the bus, off the bus. So it's a really hard kind of little quagmire of a situation. It's almost like energy independence when they talk about fracking, like, it's necessary. We got to be energy independent. Well, no, we don't necessarily. And I don't want to be like crazy over the top to think that we can eliminate diesel fuel altogether, because I know that's not possible right now. We have to get to there. But there's an argument to be made, fam. This is such an area where I think it's going to come into fruition, because a lot of the times they throw the ESGs out there and they're saying, we're stopping this, fam. These artificial fertilizers that are going to get into our waterways, that are unhealthy for our food, we need to stop it. However, the government's planting these ESGs. It's just like Russell Brand said the other day. It's not about really making the environment better or making our crops healthier. It's about taking away the small farmer and consolidating it with the big farmer. So we have a very serious problem at hand right now where there's no nuance whatsoever. It's just feast or famine.
Yeah.
So You have another. All right, so you got that video. Is that another video on 31, or is that the same video?
I don't know. You put it there.
No. I think that's the same video that
It's the same video.
All right. Okay. So with this all going on, fam, BRICS. We've talked about BRICS. Now, BRICS has been around for a long time. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South America. But it's different right now because now the BRICS countries are the ones that are really taking control. They have all the resources. They have the majority of the workers. They are now almost independent. They've de-dollarized whatsoever, fam. And now you have Algeria talking about joining BRICS. And that's something that could really throw a monkey wrench into things. Take a look at this quick video, and then we'll get on to the next part of this section.
Algeria is interested in joining the BRICS, the economic bloc of developing countries including Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. The appeal was publicly made by the Northern African leader Abdelmadjid Tebboune during a TV interview broadcast last Sunday. Algeria's president said the club was an economic and political power that permitted to move away from the attraction of the two poles. According to the CIA's World Factbook, the bloc accounts for over 31% of the world's GDP. The latest member to join the group was South Africa in 2011. On Sunday, Tebboune also said good news could quickly come, but events shouldn't be anticipated. The leader took part in a video conference between the BRICS members at the end of June. According to a senior French economist, Algeria is a heavyweight in the region, notably for its energy resources. But given the global geopolitical instability, the process could take a long time.
So there you have it, fam. One of the biggest when it comes to natural gas exporters in Africa is Algeria. Already playing games now with Spain, telling them to go scratch, selling it off to Italy. And therefore, Italy and France and Spain are kind of squabbling with each other over this natural gas. And now they're ready to make another move, which is to get into BRICS. It just seems like it's like a domino effect of everything that's happening. And Petro really threw his hat into the ring again, because this is not going to go well with the Western Empire. There's a resource in Western Sahara that they desperately want. They're not going to sit by and let this just happen, fam, without doing anything.
Well, yeah, because Latin America is very aware of what the West has done to their countries by extracting natural resources. And we are very aware of it because they literally tell you, right? That they tell you. Anybody who watches the show, we've showed multiple videos of these NGOs and of these people saying how they're so excited to extract things from the Amazon, for example. This is why Brazil's election is so important, because there is that element to it. There's the element of the Amazon and of these natural resources that exist in this region. And the Amazon, of course, I think touches 4 countries. It definitely touches Peru, Brazil, Colombia. And I think there might be maybe
Venezuela?
A portion of no. I don't think it's Venezuela. I think it might be Ecuador, but it touches a huge portion of the just major part of Central Latin America, and it's literally the lungs of the world. That's how it's described. So this whole thing is basically Latin American countries pushing back, African countries pushing back against just this dominance that had continued for years. And Gustavo Petro is literally also changing the dynamic of the politics, not just based on the, environmental issues, something he ran on, by the way. He ran on focusing on the environment. Francia Marquez, his vice president, is an environmental activist. Which environmental activists in Latin America is another thing that's very different than environmental activists in Europe. It's more based on the resources exploitation rather than let's recycle and that sort of thing, because they're the ones that get screwed. So that it would take an entire other stream to talk about that, but it's a completely different way that it's looked on. Now, so Petro this is big pasta. I don't know. I think to me, this and Venezuela are the biggest things he's done in terms of political moves, because 4 days into Petro's mandate, his foreign minister Alvaro Levia is in Havana with a Colombian government delegation. And Colombia has rejected the U.S. classification of Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism and says they hope to resume talks with the ELN in Cuba. And we'll talk about the ELN from our friend Ted Cruz, who really doesn't like them because according to him, you know, they're terrorists. But they are the National Liberation Army of Colombia, right? They are this part of Colombia, and they are basically a leftist organization, leftist sort of Marxist-Leninist group. The ELN really pretty much was defending a lot of the Colombian population during the time of the narco regimes and stuff. So they'll be described. I grew up thinking the National Liberation Army, the FARC, and all of these little groups were terrible, because that's what Univision and Telemundo and all these like mainstream media tell you. But the reality is they were pretty much created as a result of an opposition to the corrupt government. So that's we'll talk about that with Ted Cruz. But basically the next thing I wanted to point out was this right here. Let me go back to it. Anything to say on that, Pasa, before I continue?
No, fam, keep going, please.
Okay, so again, from Casacha News, they kind of cover this and dove a little deeper into it. So there's a statement, right? A direct statement from Colombia. We highlight that Cuba was the cradle of the 2016 final peace agreement between the Colombian state and the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, the FARC-EP, which has been seen as an example for the whole world. Yes, because the Colombian state, we talked about this when Pasta and I were in Colombia, was able to form a sort of peace alliance where they stopped fighting with the FARC. And at that time, the Colombian state was still under a very Uribista government, which was the same type of narco paramilitary regime. And they still managed to have peace talks, which is what they're referencing here. We aspire to resume talks with the National Liberation Army, the ELN, in this land of peace in order to begin the path proposed by President Petro to achieve total peace. Thank you, Republic of Cuba, for your hospitality. We are honored to be here. Because Cuba was brokering this peace deal, they're thanking Cuba for that. And they're saying that Cuba doesn't deserve this label as a terrorist state, as a terrorist designation, which, by the way, the United States also wants to label Russia one.
Well, certain people do. Dick Blumenthal and Lindsey Graham went on, played a warmonger patty cake on Dana Bash's show, talking about they want to list the Russian Federation as a terror state sponsor of terror. Just ridiculous. Go ahead, fam.
Right. So I want to play this video by Casacha News so you guys can hear what Petro's saying about this whole thing.
He decidido, en respuesta al gobierno venezolano que
this is Petro naming a Colombian ambassador to Venezuela. The Colombian ambassador that he named to Venezuela is extremely pro-Simón Bolívar. And he is a journalist, which is very interesting, and pretty progressive from what I've seen. And the Venezuelans named their own Venezuelan ambassador to Colombia. This is a big deal. There's now that hadn't happened in forever, because remember, the United States and Colombia were allies. They didn't recognize this whole thing with the government of Duque and didn't want anything to do with Venezuela.
Yeah.
Now, not only are they talking about it, now they each have ambassadors to each other, which is a big deal. So
this is unprecedented, fam. This is unprecedented times. People have to realize how big this is. Colombia, the watchdog, the puppet of the United States, was told, don't ever try to get relationships with Venezuela. They are the arch enemy. And now they are having relations. In fact, they look like they're welcoming more relationships. They're really open about it. So this is really unprecedented. Go ahead.
Designado embajador que tendrá como responsabilidad normalizar las relaciones diplomáticas entre los dos países, designar a Armando Benedetti como embajador de Colombia ante Venezuela, esperando el beneplácito de ese gobierno, y también con la ardua tarea de normalizar las relaciones entre los dos países, restablecer la institucionalidad que existía desde décadas antes para que los dos pueblos hermanos puedan guarecer sus derechos, garantizar sus libertades y lograr que entre Colombia y Venezuela se pueda construir riqueza para ambos pueblos. Gracias. He decidido, en respuesta al gobierno venezolano que ha designado embajador.
Yeah. He said, by the way, the difficult task of uniting our two nations. The difficult task.
Yeah. And who really let separation between the two countries that are literally next to each other? I mean, you have to understand that there's so many similarities between Venezuela and Colombia in terms of food, in terms of, there's a lot of similarities in general between those countries, from Venezuela, Colombia to Ecuador, and then Peru. There's a lot of similarities, but those two are right next to each other. And it's just, there was no reason for them to be apart. And this is something that goes back to the time of Bolivar and Santander. And so this is a big deal, as Pasta mentioned. This is a really big deal. So the next tweet I want to read, Armando Benedetti said he's going to be the ambassador to Venezuela. He's the Colombian ambassador to Venezuela. I will surprise you when we reach 10 billion in trade, when we benefit the more than 8 million Colombians living on the border. No imaginary line will separate us again as brothers. Thank you for your trust. They're trying to reestablish their relationships. They're calling the two countries brother, sister. And then Venezuela, soon to be ambassador to Colombia, in turn said, I will assume with great honor this responsibility entrusted by President Nicolas Maduro, because Nicolas Maduro named him the Venezuelan ambassador to Colombia. So this is the Twitter handle of the ambassador of Colombian ambassador to Venezuela. And that's who he is. You can see he's a journalist. He is in Bogota. And then Felix Plasencia is the Venezuelan ambassador to Colombia. He's a Bolivariano. That means he's a follower of not just Hugo Chavez, because that's technically what it means in these terms, but also from the, alluding to Simón Bolivar as well. But Bolivariano in these terms in Venezuela means Chavista, of the Chavista mentality, of the Maduro mentality. And so all of this is happening, guys. What Pasta mentioned was Western Sahara, Petro reestablishing relationships with them, Petro reestablishing relations with Venezuela, Petro reestablishing relations with Cuba, and saying, Cuba, we don't agree with the United States designating them as a terrorist organization, thanking Cuba, sending a delegation to Cuba. Cuba's persona non grata for the United States.
They are a state sponsor, according to the United States, by the way. They are one that, please.
Yeah, but so for Colombia's president, days in after being inaugurated, days, to do all this that quickly, putting a large target. And so, of course, as we predicted, we said if Colombia does this, they're gonna be looked on to be couped, right? Well, here it is. Here's our good friend Ted Cruz, right? Our good friend Gusano Ted, and Caso Chan again doing great reporting for Latin America. U.S. Senator Ted Cruz goes on an anti-Marxist tirade on the Senate floor, triggered by Gustavo Petro's inauguration. This is just by his inauguration. We'll see what they say in the coming days by his actions that are now. He's He's going, I think, from my opinion, he's going the route of AMLO, Petro, it seems like. So let's just hear what good old Ted has to say, because he says so many wonderful things here we have to break down. He really does.
We don't support Marxists in Latin America, and any leftist leader who chooses socialism will be held accountable by the United States. Already, 9 governments across South America, Central America, and the Caribbean are controlled by socialists. All of these governments, with only one exception, are also overtly and ideologically anti-American. Colombia,
Which one's not?
will become the 10th government in the region controlled by the hard left when the country's new president, Gustavo Petro, will take office. I am deeply worried that once he does, Colombia will join the ranks of anti-American forces in Latin America. Petro is the first openly Marxist to be elected president of Colombia.
Oh, shit.
He was brought to power by Colombia's leftist fringe, including guerrillas.
Okay, you got to pause that.
Colombians are well aware of what has happened in other...
Oz, sorry, can you bring us back in real quick, Fee? I just got to stop right there real quick because the level of bullshit and the lying there is just beyond ridiculous. Gustavo Petro is not a hard Marxist, guys. He was the one who they felt was the most leftist within the establishment that can broker certain deals and get things done. And I want to know, fam, who's out of the 9 governments? He said all of them are anti United States. Which one of the socialist governments is not anti-US that he was alluding to? Is he alluding to El Salvador? I guess I don't know what he's talking.
Yeah, that would be my guess. Because you have, let's see, who would be the government? We got Colombia, you got Cuba, Nicaragua, you got El Salvador, Venezuela. I think he probably is counting
Peru, maybe. Maybe he's saying Peru.
Argentina.
Yes.
Did I say Mexico?
Chile.
That's 8. Okay. Chile. That's
Honduras. 9.
So that's 9.
Yeah. So
10 would be
Colombia with 10. So we're missing one.
By the way, Ted, it's gonna be no. It's Colombia would be 10. Yeah, would be the 10th government is what he said.
We missed one. Yeah. We counted Colombia in that, did we not?
No, we hadn't.
Okay.
No, it's Nicaragua, Honduras, Mexico. Not Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Chile, Argentina, El Salvador. Did you say Chile?
I don't know.
I think it was right, and then Colombia would be the 10th one. I think we might have missed one.
Let's play. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, we can play. Wait. But I wanted to say something else about what he said. He's not. Yeah, Petro is not Marxist at all. He's I would say progressive for Latin America, which is more progressive than we have in the United States. Because progressive in the United States doesn't mean that anymore. And you see how he acts like he has some sort of like God-given right
an alien or what do you call it? Inalienable rights.
Inalienable right to decide what type of government the people of Colombia should have.
We don't like their government. We can get rid of them.
They're anti-American.
We're not going to let any socialist government in the Caribbean and the global South at all. We will bring you to heel. You're not allowed to exist.
Marxists. Why do you care? What's it to you? Let them be. Even if you disagree with their government, why would you care? What's it to you? Why do you feel like you have to exert your jurisdiction? You have no jurisdiction. These are independent sovereign countries. The United States loves independent sovereign countries when they can manipulate them, but no, not when they don't, when they can't. So, okay, yeah, let's just hear the rest of his little rant. because it gets worse or better, depending on how you look at it.
Latin American countries that have elected or have seen leftists seize power. Cuba and Venezuela, for example. I don't want to see Colombia follow the example of other socialist governments in the Western Hemisphere. We know where that leads. Both Cuba and Venezuela used to be prosperous countries until leftists came to power. Castro and the communist revolution succeeded there. Maite Sonia fought in the counter-revolution against Castro. Mexican President López Obrador seems intent on making these trends worse. The Colombian far left gained momentum and Petro was elected. Petro says he will work hand in hand with Nicolas Maduro's oppressive regime in Venezuela.
Oppressive.
He is looking to work with the National Liberation Army, a terrorist organization in Colombia. He will embrace the FARC.
Bolivia.
FARC is an organization of Marxist-Leninist narco-terrorists. How great! An anti-American Marxist in a close ally of ours in Latin America. We don't...
This guy is one of the biggest freaking gusano pieces of crap in the face of the earth. Once again, I mean, how in the hell are they allowed, and should Ted Cruz be able to start screaming about what goes on in other countries? This ain't the U.S., Jack, but this is what they're going to sell, fam, and this they sell it well. There was even a little kind of sense of that when I went to those panels at Freedom Fest. Like, the governments are socialist, they're communist, they're no good, they're anti-American. We need to get rid of them. But wait a second, we're at a libertarian Freedom Fest here. Aren't we for non-intervention? Like, they're going to even have that dichotomy and that fight going on in that party, and that happens all the time. I mean, Rand Paul wrote a book, The Argument Against Socialism. I mean, like, hello, I get it if that's how you feel, but just the title alone, you're manufacturing consent for the empire to go back there, down there and remove those people and put the people they want in place. All the bankers who control all the resources, thrust their monetary system on these people with austerity measures, so they never get out of the shackles of these banks, of these international banks, fam.
He's like, this is hilarious. By the way, the country we didn't mention, I think, was Bolivia. So altogether, although together, yes, it would be 10. And then if we add Brazil, it would be 11, Ted. They are so scared, Pasta. They are fucking scared to death, because what's happening in Latin America, it's not like everybody got together and was like, hey, we're going to all elect a bunch of commies and a bunch of socialists and like take over and go after the United States. This is the chickens coming home to roost. Literally, this is like after decades and decades of living, the consequences of sanctions, the consequences of blockades, the consequences of U.S. imperialism. This is that coming home to roost. This is all of that, right? And so that is pretty much what is happening here and what we're doing. And I think and I think it's freaking phenomenal that that's happening, because it's finally seeing some pushback. It's finally seeing that this whole movement, this whole pink tide happen. And there's differences between the government of Mexico, with the government of Nicaragua, with the government of Cuba, with the government of Venezuela. It's not like it's just like they all agree on everything. In fact, that is one of the things that is going to be difficult, is these countries all have different, they don't necessarily all agree on things. And there's some people that I wouldn't necessarily trust, like Gabriel Boric from Chile. I'm a little bit, he's not my favorite. He's a little bit too westernized, in my opinion. And there's just, a few things here and there. But I think, to me, this is more of an economic alliance than an ideological one. This is more growing out of economic need for these countries to exert their sovereignty. Yes, there is ideology in terms of we want to be our own sovereign countries, but there's a lot of I think economic, right? There's economic gain to working with China. There's economic gain and military gain through working with Russia. There's economic gains when it comes to the infrastructure of these countries. It's just not economically feasible to ignore your neighbor. It just doesn't make any sense. Why would you ignore? Yeah, why would Colombia ignore Venezuela when Venezuela has oil? You know, it's just, yeah.
No, the chickens are coming home to roost, fam. I just, that's what this is about. And, I've been talking about once we exhaust ourselves financially which once again, I guess when we get money from the printing press, we might not ever run out of that. But once we exhaust our operations over in Ukraine and Syria and that region, we're going to bring it back home. And they're ready to put somebody in like a DeSantis who's just like Ted Cruz, who's just like Marco Rubio, who's just like all the lawmakers in our Congress. They're all gusanos. They're all pro-imperialist, and they believe they have a right to remove these governments down there because their last name is Latin. I mean, that's their whole mentality, that they're of this descent, and they're really freeing these people. We need not intervene. Yeah. We need not intervene. We should be staying out of it. Plain and simple.
They had another video. It's slide 44. You're going to have to cowboy it anyway. But before, I'll give you some time. So I just wanted to say too, somebody had posted looks like a really funny response. Huh?
It looks like a Zoom link, fam. Yeah.
Oh, weird. Okay, I guess it's the wrong link. It's okay. I can probably find it really quickly because it's kind of important. It's literally what we've been talking about.
Guys, thank you so much. While Fee's looking for that real quick, guys, hit the like button, hit the share button. We're right near 300 on YouTube. We've been completely demonetized over there, now going on like 22 months. It's almost freaking ridiculous what they're doing, shadow banning and keeping us down. We never come up in the algorithm, so we need your help here. Go ahead, hit that like button, hit that share button. For the 82 people that are over on Convo Couch Rokfin, thank you guys. Listen, the last section, the next section coming up is going to be
It's going to be Rokfin only.
It's going to be Rokfin only. So now is your time. Jilly Love, if you can throw that link up in the chat, we love you, Jilly Love. How can you not love Jilly Love? Guys, gone on over to Rokfin. The last section, we're going to talk about that beautiful moonwalking of the CDC, which they have now re-advised their recommendations for four different recommendations out there. We're going to go over them because I don't think anything changed, fam. I look outside the window, nothing changed. A meteor didn't come, a comet didn't come, there wasn't no new information to light. All the information that has pretty much solidified these new four rule changes have been out for a long time. And we've been talking about it for a long time. In fact, one of the rules we're going to talk about, fam, I got suspended off Twitter. Well, not suspended, but I got locked out of my Twitter until I took a tweet down, and I waited 5 days. Nobody responded. And eventually I did it. So let's check out this new video, fam. What do you got over here? Oh, in Mexico.
Okay, so yeah. So he mentioned, notice how he mentioned AMLO, right? Because AMLO is another guy that's putting a target on his back. He's going like far with a lot of things. Not wanting to nationalize lithium. He wanted all of Latin America. He wants all of Latin America to nationalize lithium for the entirety of Latin America. But he was able to do the Mexico. He wanted to nationalize all of Mexico's energy, but he wasn't able to do it. He was really close. So this guy is really, he talked about Julian Assange. So here is our good friend Ted's continued tirade. Now this time he is talking about Mexico, and he's talking about Gustavo Petro, about AMLO, and about AMLO desire to nationalize Mexico's energy. So here it is. And I think he was able to do it this time. Let's see.
In Mexico, we're seeing deepening civil unrest and the erosion of civil society. The breakdown of the rule of law across our southern border poses acute national security challenges and dangers to the United States. And when I questioned a Biden State Department official on Obrador's targeting of American companies and the nationalization of energy in Mexico, he wouldn't even admit that those were bad things. And if he's not willing to admit to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee that the leftist president of Mexico targeting of American companies and the nationalization of energy in Mexico are bad things, then we can be certain the Biden administration is also unwilling to convey that to Mexico.
So he uses this whole bullshit like as if Biden is some sort of Marxist. This is what irritates me the most. Oh, Biden isn't going after AMLO enough, in his opinion, right? So that means that Biden must be some sort of commie, and so I'm going to attack Biden from the right, even though Joe Biden has been just as antagonistic with Mexico, if not more, than Donald Trump. They don't like it. Why don't they like it, Pasta, that Mexico wants to nationalize their energy? Can you just give me some insight on that? Because I just don't understand.
That cuts into, listen, you need to read the Monroe Doctrine. That's our area down there. Even though it's not our country, it's on our hemisphere. We have a right to do what we want there. We have a right to steal those resources. And if he nationalizes his own oil, fam, that cuts into our money, into our profits. Then we can't extract and mine the lithium out of there on pennies on the dollar. We can't do that to their oil. Who is he to do that anyways? They've always been subservient to us. They need to stay that way. They bend the knee or we break them. That's it. That's the American empire.
Yeah, I mean, so again, the United States thinks they have jurisdiction over what another country does for its people. Well, so they have to vilify it as socialism. Like, don't call it socialism. I don't care what you call it. You know what I mean? This is beneficial to the people of Mexico. They should do what they want to do. If the people of Mexico want to legalize marijuana, if the people of Mexico want to nationalize their energy, let them. They wanted to nationalize lithium, sure, they did it. And now, of course, they're moving. AMLO is pushing and pushing and pushing. And what does that do? That's going to affect these multinational corporations, as Pasta said, that exploit that exploit these people, this wealth that should remain in Mexico, just like the wealth that should have remained in Central and South America, and these countries that are resource rich never remains there. It gets extracted and goes elsewhere, specifically to the United States and to the West. But guys, you don't even get to see that wealth either. Not anymore. Not like you used to, by the way, because, a lot of people would justify it, right? And be like, yeah, well, if we do that, if we let those countries have all their stuff, then we're not going to have a good life. I mean, that's a very selfish way of looking at it. But you're not even tell me how great the life is when people can't even use air conditioning in their apartment because it's too expensive. Or when people come this winter in the EU aren't going to be able to heat their homes because it's too expensive. It's like a whole other rent to use gas. And so you have to think about those things too. It's not benefiting anybody except a very small group of people. So that's the way Ted Cruz and these people think of this sort of thing. So yeah, that's that section, and I think it's important to point it out. So yeah,
winter is coming.
Winter is coming, fam.
Winter is coming, and we're telling people to go forage. Is that what they call it when you go forage? When you go collect sticks, forage.
Yeah, go get some firewood.
Steve would be here to
go get some firewood, Jack.
Go grab some. Go pick a switch. I'm gonna beat you with it, guys. Chris Leone over on the Rokfin Super Ray donation, 111 people watching out there. Chris Leon says, guys, love your show. Always listen, but I can't always contribute. But I'm always here, lurking in the shadows. LL.
And it's always appreciated.
I have an interesting question. Why do you guys think Miami has become the capital for gusanos from Latin America? Is there a specific reason they chose Miami? Maybe one of you guys know why. LOL, much love. Well, I mean, it started with the Cubans when they were down there. The maritime boat ride was one of the most famous things. They had always, first of all, Florida, the coast of Keys, is really close to Cuba. Yeah. It's very, very, very close. So geographically, it's located almost right next to that country. But at one point during the maritime boat ride and whatnot, they actually brought people, when people came in from Cuba right there, they were actually holding them in camps, like internment camps underneath I-95. So there was a lot of people that were sent over, either kicked out of Cuba. The American State Department accused Castro of unloading his prisons, putting them on boats and making deals with the boat owners and saying, get the hell out of here. So that established a very huge community down there. And I just think it's Miami has this culture of Latin America, very much Caribbean style, that is just embedded in over there. And it's part of what South Florida really is. So somebody leaving Venezuela, somebody leaving Cuba, somebody leaving wherever, they have a lot of support systems down over there. Cuban people. I mean, there's places where Nico lives. If you don't speak Spanish, you're going to be in trouble. I get like scolded by like mean Cubans down there for not ordering my coffee properly. I mean, it's an enriched Latin community, and for some reason, it's always been there.
Yeah. So in Maria, this is something that happened in Cuba with it started with obviously the Batista government. Fidel went after the Batista government. He went after the exploiters of sorts, the ones that were making Cuba the la perla de los Latinoamérica, the Estados Unidos, like the whorehouse of the United States, because they would just go and gamble, and there was so much prostitution in Cuba. Castro came in, he was like, no more, we're not going to do that. This is why I make you listen to the revolutionary music, fam, that I was playing on the way back from Tijuana, because they literally tell the story, but you need to listen more to the Cuban music. Anyway, so basically that's what happened, and they started, like Costa said, putting people on boats and sending people here, but they had to reach land. If the Cubans reached land, they would automatically get asylum. Now, this is something that was later on people were mad about, a lot of people from other countries that didn't get that, because they had to go through an entire process that takes decades sometimes to become citizens. Whereas Cubans, once they reached the specific location in Miami, they would automatically get asylum and be able to apply for fast-paced citizenship. So that's why there was a lot of Cubans. And so then since that happened, since there was a lot of people who spoke the language, more people started coming from different areas and so on and so forth. And there's so many embassies there from Latin American countries. If I want to go get a Peruvian passport, for example, I have to go all the way to Miami because that's where the embassy is. If you're going to vote for Colombian elections, Peruvian elections, or whatever elections, if you're in Florida, it's one of the easier and only places you can go vote. Even if you're not living there and you're still a citizen, you go vote there. So there's that community there, and that's why that whole situation, it just started building. People started coming from Central America, from all over, but especially the Caribbean. It was just proximity wise, and then also the weather was similar to a lot of the people where they came from, and just more Latin people. You could get by Miami with speaking Spanish and not knowing English, and it was fine. When I was in Miami growing up, they taught me Spanish and English, which is why I know Spanish fluently, because in other parts of the country, you spoke Spanish with your family, but then you went to school and you learned English, and then you forgot Spanish. But that's why Johnny sucks in Spanish, because even though he was born in Miami, by the time he was older, he didn't get the same type of education because he was in a more anglicized part of the country.
Yeah, he went from Fidel to Mickey. Anyways, guys, that's that section, guys. This is your chance now. Get on over to the Rokfin, ROKFIN Rokfin.com/the Convo Couch. You can find us over there. Let's put the link up and we'll get it over there. All right, guys, we're going to leave YouTube. This is it, the last section. Put up the section right here. The CDC narrative backtracks in shambles right now.
Yeah, guys.
Jesus.
All the shit we got banned for.
Dude.
All the shit we got banned, demonetized, labeled anti-vaxxers.
And nothing has changed,
Blumenthal?
Nothing
was it Blumenthal that put out a tweet that was like all the people that got called anti-vaxxers and stuff for this is now in the mainstream media. Yeah, like it's just freaking annoying. It's obnoxious.
Several people did this shit down here. Let's do it. 5, We're leaving. Oz, don't be so snappy. Oh my God. 5, 4, 3,
Bye, guys.
2, 1. Bye, YouTube. Hello, Rokfin. Did we have the link in here? Let me put the link in here. Guys, here's the link inside the YouTube chat. No link. We need the link.
By the way, if you go get to see the Assange concert go, it looks really awesome. Misty posted pictures. My brother's going to the Orlando one. I'm jealous. Pasta, you should go to one. If I could, I would go.
Pam, don't tell me what to do. You're not the boss of me. Leaving 5.
Pam, you and Steve need to go.
3.
Roger Waters concert.
Who's gonna watch Gomez? 2, 1.
Pam.
Steve is going to that. So
Oh,
goodbye,
Steve,
YouTube.